All right, and today I am on the air with the lovely Oreo. You may remember me as the effeminate degenerate. I used to be on YouTube about 4 months ago, have been kind of off the platform for a while, but it's great to be back. And I'm just wondering if, sorry, I'm really messing up this intro. Anyway, I was just wondering if, yeah, so you can go ahead and introduce yourself and then we can get on into the stream.
All right. Well, hi everyone. My name's Oreo. Uh, I'm 19. I am. I make political YouTube videos, and yeah, I also post a lot on Twitter about politics and stuff. So yeah,
Mm-hmm. It's really good account.
thanks.
Um, anyway, sorry, it's been a long time since I've done this. Um, first things first, I'm kind of curious as to why you decided to pick the name Oreo for your YouTube channel.
Uh, Pretty much. It's kind of funny. A lot of when I tell people this, sometimes they're like, "Well, oh, it's kind of degrading. Why would you name yourself that?" But I just kind of took it like it was basically nothing. So when I was in sixth grade, I used to get bullied a lot because I was really different from all the other kids, and I went to a predominantly black school. So
Mm.
a lot of the kids would pick on me because the way I talked, they would be like, "Oh, you sound very white," or like the clothes I wore. Like they used to specifically make fun of my shoes because I really wouldn't wear like a lot of sneakers. I would actually wear like loafers, and that was actually a requirement for our uniform, but the kids didn't care, like they wore sneakers. Um, and Yeah, basically, they started calling me like an Oreo, and I didn't
Mm.
know what it meant. So I kind of told the teacher, and she was really upset. And so I asked her, what does it mean? And she said that it's basically a black person who has characteristics or acts like a white person. And it
Mm-hmm.
just didn't make sense to me because I'm like, well, there's no particular way a white person is supposed to act or does act. So,
Yeah.
you know, I just kind of took it with a grain of salt eventually. Like I really didn't care. And now, I just decided to name myself that because I kind of look at it as a joke, just like a inside joke for me.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Like that's why I picked the name The Effeminate Degenerate because it was something, you know, someone yelled at me once when I was at a protest, and so I'm like, wow, actually, there's nothing bad about that. There's nothing wrong
Right.
about that. So I just kind of embraced it, and that's just kind of my modus operandi is to take the negative insults and the words and the things that people use to try to tear you down and to take them back and use them as methods of empowerment instead.
Yeah.
And sorry, just fixing some things on the other end. Anyway, um, so you started your YouTube channel about a few months ago now, like 8 months ago.
Yeah. I think it was around June, if I'm not mistaken. I could be, but I know it was like sometime during the summer last year or the spring.
So what made you want to go on the platform?
Um, like when I started watching like a lot of YouTube videos when I was like, I think 16, and they were mainly gaming videos. Like my original idea was I was going to be a gaming channel because I really like to play video games and I think I'm good at them. Um, but eventually, like I kind of got caught up into like the whole anti-SJW sphere, um,
Mm.
which I think is my next video. Like, how did I get on this platform, which is through the anti-SJW sphere? But um, pretty much that got me into politics, and I actually want to start a then. Well, oh my God, okay. uh, I was gonna start a channel, and then I said, well, instead of doing gaming, I think I have pretty good opinions. I think I can probably do this. So I decided that I was gonna start a political commentary channel, and
Mm.
it was a because this was still the time when I was, I guess you could say, like had right ideas, and
Okay.
My channel, yeah, my channel pretty much started off that way, but over time I became more left while I was on this platform. But
Mm.
yeah.
So why do you think you moved in a more left-leaning direction?
Um, Mainly because like when I was this is like the lowest I think I could have gone, and I kind of regret it. So I kind of went through like the well, what some people call the rabbit hole on the anti-SJW side of
Mm.
YouTube. So you start off with someone who doesn't really have like a lot of, I guess, radical ideas, and then
Yeah.
you eventually go to someone who's radical. So for me, it started off with those anti-feminist like rec compilation videos, and then eventually I started watching some black guy, and
Mm.
then I think Blair White, no bullshit, and then it was just a bunch, and then it eventually went to James Alsop. Now at the time,
Wow.
yeah, at the time I didn't know that James Alsop was a alt right figure. I didn't even know what alt right meant.
Mm.
So when I saw like, because everybody was like, oh yeah, he's a part of like the Unite the Right rally. Now I knew what that was, and that kind of caught my attention. So I was like just searching through YouTube, and I eventually found like I think it was like deleted clips from the stream he deleted off his channel where he was at it, and it kind of disturbed me because I didn't think that it was possible. I didn't think that a person could actually involve themselves with something like that, like a person who I was following, a person whose ideas I kind of took in and believed.
Yeah.
Uh, I didn't think that. So from then on, that's when I started going towards the left, and it started off with ContraPoints, and then eventually towards other left-leaning YouTubers and figures.
Yeah. ContraPoints is a gift. But anyway, no, I can definitely relate to lots of elements of that story. I actually used to watch a lot of anti-SJW YouTubers myself. Like it never went to the extent of James Alsop,
Yeah.
but I did used to be a big Sargon fan about 2 years ago.
Oh.
I was totally against the feminist system. I was, I was completely invested in that,
Yeah.
in that sort of ideology. I was,
I felt the same way about No Bullshit. Like I really enjoyed his, like that was the one I think I watched the most. I think some black guy came in second.
mm,
But with No Bullshit, it was just like, oh man, like yeah, we need to freaking fight the SJWs, against their radical agenda.
yeah. But then you actually look at his content again, and you see that it's extremely hypocritical because he'll get
Yeah.
angry when the SJWs complain about some new movie or something. Like, oh, they're
Right.
going to push their politics into video games. They're going to push their politics into media. But then he'll go around and turn around and say like, oh, all these SJW moments in movies and
Right.
video games and culture. And then there was like it's so embarrassing sometimes, like how far he has to reach to find like SJW moments. I remember I
Right.
watched his video on Game of Thrones, and I remember he called this one scene an SJW moment because there were more women in it than men.
Oh my God. I think I forgot the video, but I know he did one on Dunkirk, and it was like some people were complaining, like, "Oh yeah, why weren't there any black soldiers in the movie?" And he made a whole big deal out of that. I'm like, dude, just calm down. You don't have to get this upset about things. And then I guess what turned me off eventually from No Bullshit was the Destiny stream. Like
Mm.
baited him, and he made that comment about black people. I think Destiny asked him like, "Why do you think black people get caught with weed more than white people?" And then he said, "Because black people don't know how to hide it well." And then he was like, "Black people, they drive in their cars with guns hanging out their pockets." And I'm like, "What the hell?"
Have you ever driven around with a car with guns
I don't
hanging
even
out of
have
your
a
pocket?
car, and I don't have a car. I don't own a gun, so
How would that even work? Like, wouldn't the gun slip out and then shoot them in the face?
right,
It's just, I don't know. Like, it's just when you hear things like that, you just know that he has absolutely no experience with any black
right.
people whatsoever, outside of like really, really racist stereotypes from movies.
Yeah, it's bad. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Mm. So anyway, I know that you live in the terrorist states of America, KKK.
Yes, I do.
So, what is your current opinion of the president elect? Well, I suppose he's not elect anymore. He is actually
Yeah.
the president.
Um, he's yeah, I'm like he's not really good. Like I'm trying to think because like I remember a lot of people thought that the tariffs was a good thing. The tariffs that he did with I think it was China.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, no, because any sane economist would tell you that you're not supposed to do that, like, because that gets you into a trade war. And since our economy was just really starting to bounce back, it's like, oh, well, no, you don't want to go into this, but he went into it anyway. And a lot of people are like, well, look at the economy, man. Look, it's doing great. But then it's like, well, he carried that over from Obama. Like, if you look at the S&P or the what was the other one? I think the Dow Jones. If you look at those two indexes, because I think they're indicators of how well the economy is doing. If you look at those two indexes, they were rising under Obama's term. Like at some points, it was peaks and valleys, and you usually see that with most like stock market. I don't even know the word. I guess indexes. I don't know, but you usually see that in the stock market. You just see peaks and valleys, and um, it was going up under Obama, then Trump kind of took over and he basically took that over. And now conservatives, they have this whole narrative where it's like, well, Trump fixed the American economy. And it's like, well, no, it was working under Obama. Like it was starting to come back. And then he just came in and he kind of progressed it.
Yeah.
Um, Also his take on the whole I think it was like Mexicans are I remember. I'm just gonna go into like everything. Like his whole take on Mexicans being rapists and criminals and stuff. Like I kind of like okay, because my ethics teacher and I got into like a talk about this,
Mm.
and he basically said like, are there people that come over the border and like they have drugs and they have weapons and like they're rapists? I'm like, yeah, but it sounds like he's characterizing that into every single person that comes over the border, when
Yeah,
really
not
it's
only that,
not.
he specifically mentioned Mexico. You know, when
Right.
Mexico's sending people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing
Yeah.
drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Right. And that was why I told him and like, I guess he kind of got it afterwards. I guess like it was one of those conversations where it was like, you know, I guess he kind of didn't really understand like why the left was really upset about it, but
Yeah.
yeah. Also he lately he's just been a complete fucking mess. Like I don't like him one bit. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, he's just like the bit that he does that seems to get everyone's attention is, you know, all the crazy posts that he does on Twitter
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all the like blatantly wrong things that he says and all the, you know, gaffes that he makes every single day to the point where it's become basically normal. But I think like the most dangerous things about Trump actually are the ones that get the least attention because it's the ones
Hmm.
that media actually agree with. Like he deregulated
Yeah.
banks in 2017. Barely anyone noticed, but that is one of the most concerning things to me because the last time that happened, you know, in 1999, when Glass-Steagall was repealed, and then later under Bush, there was even more regulations dropped.
Hmm.
It led to the big economic crash, the Great
Yeah. Yeah.
Recession, about 10 years ago. And now it seems like, you know, the conservatives didn't learn anything from it and want to do it all over again.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know he deregulated banks. And I guess, like you said, it's because it didn't get media attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the problem. Like, there are fair criticisms of media. Like, okay, when he said fake news, I think fake news, it used to be like, because from what I heard, it used to be like a term where it was for like genuine like fake posts, like things that were obviously fake, like like those science posts that you usually see on like Facebook, and it's like, oh yeah, you take this pill, this could help you sleep better,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's just a sugar pill, and
Doctors,
stuff.
take her.
Right. And stuff like that, that's what fake news really is. But then like with him, it's like, I guess liberal media in general, or
Yes,
like
like any news
like
that unflatteringly covers him or his policies.
right, except for Fox News. And it's like, well, can't you just be objective for once? I mean, like, the media has bias, apparently. Like, it's always going to have some sort of bias. The thing is, though, is it credible and is it valid? just because like a media outlet has a leftist bias, that doesn't mean that some of their writings can't be credible or have like a valid source behind them.
Mhm.
I'll even say the same thing for some conservative sources. Like,
Yeah.
you know, just because it's conservative, that doesn't mean that, you know, it might not have some reliable things behind it. But
Yeah. You
shit,
have to
shit like
investigate the facts before like dismissing the entire, you know,
right.
platform.
Unless it's places like Breitbart, obviously.
Oh, okay, yeah. Like obviously, like because the thing with Breitbart is that it's basically just clickbait. It's
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
we are trying to get you angry, or we are trying to target the people who get you angry.
right. And it's funny because then they call like the radical left like, oh yeah, they're reactionaries. And it's like, well, you guys are kind of doing the exact same thing. It's just you guys are too dumb to notice it.
Yeah, it's basically like they'll get offended at, they'll pick like one little story and then they'll blow it up and attribute it to everyone in that little group,
Mhm.
and or they'll just flat out invent things. It's just an awful outlet.
Yeah.
And like it was pretty openly advocating, and it still is pretty openly advocating white supremacy. Like Steve
Mhm.
Bannon, when he was running Breitbart, he said, I want this to be a platform for the alt-right. Like
He
it was
did.
pretty
He did.
explicit. And it is pretty disturbing to me just how many people read this stuff.
Yeah, I saw today Donald Trump Jr. He actually because I like retweeted his post because he had the
Mhm.
Breitbart article in it. I'm like, wow, I just kind of did the Jesse Lee Peterson thing. Amazing. I was like, Link's Breitbart article. Amazing.
Oh, Jesse Lee Peterson. What can
I
you
actually used to
do?
watch him too. I did at one point. I didn't really believe what he was saying. Like he kind of sounded, even when I was conservative, to me, he sounded like he was just a bunch of nonsense. But I kind of watched a little bit. But
Well, to me, with Jesse Lee Peterson, he kind of always sounds like he's about to die, like he's on life support or
yeah,
something.
he sounds like he's drunk like every single time. And then he also says like everything he says, it's not even an argument. Like I remember he was like debating this. I think it was like a black professor from like UCLA or it was one of those like top
Yeah.
universities in California. And like I think he referred to like black people as you people, Jesse Lee Peterson. And then the black professor was like, "Wait, Jesse, you're black." He's like, "Yeah, I know." He was like, "So why are you referring to us as you people?" He was like, "Because, I don't really associate with you people." And I'm like, "Oh my God." And
This
he
is
does
very
this.
strange
He
like
did this
Uncle
to
Ruckus.
almost every single black person on his show. He was like, he referred to them as you people, and then they would be like, "Wait, no, but you're black," and he's like, "Yeah, I know. I just don't really want to associate with you guys." And it was just mind-boggling to me. And he like refers to like he thinks everything has to either involve like the left or like black lesbians for some reason, and he thinks that you can't have morals like without God or anything
Oh
like that.
yeah,
It's just
Tiger Lee talking points.
like, oh yeah, if you don't believe in God, you're gonna be at a low place in your life. I'm like, well, people who believe in God are at low places in their lives.
I mean, oftentimes it's true. Like, just because you pretend that you believe in God or you say you believe in God doesn't really make you a good person.
Right.
Like, it takes more than that. You actually have to do things for other people. It's not just about like, oh, I announce my belief in this supernatural being, therefore I am moral now.
Right. It's dumb.
But like, I really hate to say this because I really don't like being the type of person that trashes black conservatives just for being black.
Hmm.
But Jesse Lee Peterson really does strike me as Uncle Ruckus. Like, come
Yeah.
along.
Yeah, me too. Like I don't like to trash like black conservatives, like because I remember when I was one, like I used to get
Mhm.
trashed a lot, but like with people like Jesse Lee Peterson, yeah, they deserve criticism. And the same goes for people like Candace Owens too. Like
Mhm.
she's really just a grifter in my opinion. Jesse Lee Peterson, I think he's actually a conservative. It's just that he's just very ill informed, but
Yeah,
very
he's
entertaining.
a
Like
very,
that's
very dumb man. With Candace Owens, like, I actually see her as malevolent. Like, I actually
hmm
think that she's a bad person. Like,
yeah, and she reminds me of like because my ethics professor, he actually said this, and I think I kind of tweeted it out too. It's that some people they have opinions, Like they hear other people's opinions and they believe them as informed opinions when really there's like no backing behind it. It's just an opinion. It's not informed. Like they don't have any research. Like the person who they're telling this to, that person, they don't try to research it. They don't try to like look for evidence behind it. So they just repeat it like sound bites. I kind of call them like human tape recorders. Like you say something to a tape recorder, like you record it and you stop the recording and it's like embedded in the
Yeah.
tape. So like you keep replaying it over and over again to other people. And like people like Candace Owens, I kind of think of her as like a human tape recorder. She hears like these conservative talking points and she doesn't really kind of look into them. She just relays them to like her audience. And her audience, I think her audience likes her. This might be a little mean, but I think her audience likes her because one, she's a minority. Two, she's attractive. Like because I remember I think it was like a some black guy video and he actually made a good point. I don't know if it was him or somebody else, but basically what they said was like if you had Jigglypuff saying what Candace Owens was saying, or Candace Owens like saying her points to you in your face, like who are you more likely to believe? Because I think there was a study and it's like people do listen to attractive people more.
Yeah.
And Candace Owens, she's kind of attractive to some people. So I'm like pretty sure that they would listen to her more because of that. And also because she's black, it's like, oh yeah, she's a black conservative. And she uses that so fucking much to like her advantage. I love it when she says she doesn't play the race card and then she's like, oh, I'm a black conservative and like all the freaking white liberals
I'm free. All the white liberals though, they hate me because I'm black.
That just fucking kills me because it's like you don't even see the hypocrisy in what you're saying. Uh, like I think like she did that with Ted Lieu when she was like, "Oh yeah, he thinks all black people are stupid because they won't look into the context of it." I'm like, what does this have to do with every single black person? Like, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm. And then she's like, "Oh, all left-wing black people, they're on the Democrat plantation." You know,
And I actually got to an argument with a conservative over that because they were telling me, well, she's using that to wake black people up. And I'm like, yeah, but that's still insulting. Like, if I were to call, okay, if I were to call every single black conservative, like if I were to do what she does, like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, black conservatives, guess what? You're on the conservative plantation. All those white conservatives are your slave owners. You are nothing but a slave. Basically, that's kind of like saying, okay, well, you're not thinking for yourself because she does do this. She thinks that black conservatives, I think black libertarians, just anybody besides a black liberal, what they are they're free thinkers. They can think for themselves. They don't take other people's opinions. I mean, ironically, but it's like they don't take other people's opinions and like take that to heart and like relay it and they believe it. Like they're very skeptical. And the thing is with her is that she thinks that's black conservatives, like black libertarians, etc. And with black liberals, it's like, oh well, you're a slave. Like all you're doing is just relaying what like all these white liberals are telling you. Like you're not thinking for yourself. Like get off the plantation. And it's just like, why? Like that's such a skewed worldview on politics.
And not only that, like it's really demeaning to like,
Yeah.
and it's so silly because I know tons of black left-wing people, black liberals, whatever, black centrists who criticize Candace Owens, and they're thinking, they're really intelligent people. They're human beings with their own thoughts and opinions, and
Right.
it all just gets dismissed. Like if you don't agree with me, you are a slave of the man. You
Right.
are licking the master's boots. Like hate that kind of rhetoric.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, but I did find that I can't believe the Republicans actually thought it was a good idea to invite Candace Owens to a hearing on white supremacy.
That was just, I knew it was going to be bad. Like there were so many I think there were articles coming out about that before it even happened. They were like, "Oh yeah, the Republicans invited Candace Owens." Yeah, it's going to be bad. Like you don't even have to read the article. You already, or even like I guess not even know why they're bringing her. Like you just know it's going to get bad because this is Candace Owens.
Mm-hmm. But then like it surpassed all expectations. I don't know. I think one of my favorite things that has happened this year so far was that moment with Ted Lieu sassily posing with the phone and just making like this infuriated expression.
Yeah, she was like, that look on her face, I think it was like, oh man, yeah, you really fucked up now.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was
Yeah.
perfect. Um, I don't know, like, is there any like so I guess another thing that's kind of going on right now is all this stuff with Ilhan Omar and everyone
Yeah.
being offended by this Fox News clip where she says some people did something and now Muslims are losing all their civil rights. And
Yeah,
everyone's like,
wasn't she like commenting? I think because I remember somebody like retweeted, no, not retweeted, but tweeted like the full clip, and they
mm-hmm,
even like added what she actually said, and it sounded like she was talking about her time in school. I think it was like elementary school or middle school or something like that, and like I completely forgot. I don't want to like talk about it and like not really know what
yeah, of
you know
course,
was said, but
important to be informed.
yeah,
Hashtag,
but it looked like it was like really out of context. Like they were just taking out of context. I don't think she. This is the thing with Ilhan Omar. So like when they were saying she was being anti-Semitic with the whole, I think it was like Israel hypnotized the world or something like that.
mm-hmm,
It's very one. It's tone deaf. So
yeah,
uh, trying to think of what to say. Um, I think what she was trying to do was criticize Israel's policies or criticize Israel's influence in like lobbying. Um, to me, that's not really anti-Semitic because you're not. I think when you're being anti-Semitic, I could have understood if she said, "Oh yeah, the Jews are hypnotizing the world," right? Something like that.
yeah,
That's now that's anti-Semitic. Instead, she said Israel, and it's like, okay, well, we have to think about context here. Um, is she talking about Jewish people? And if she is, yeah, that's anti-Semitic, and she should give a statement and apologize. Or is she talking about their policy? Is she talking about Israel's policies or Israel as a state? Like we have to be objective with things like this. You can't just jump to conclusions like, "Oh, she's an anti-Semite." It's like really that's not being I guess rational or reasonable.
yeah. Now, there are like certain things that Ilhan Omar has said I thought were kind of like rhetorically clumsy. The hypnotize
Mm,
the world thing, I'm like, okay, like I can kind of
yeah,
see that it does remind me of some things that people have said. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, the Zionists, they're controlling everything.
yeah. That's why I said it was like very tone. It's really tone deaf, but
Mhm.
I don't
But
think
it
she was like
wasn't
trying to be
like
malicious
that
with it.
bad. And then people got like, but it seems like everything she says, people get like insanely angry. Like
Yeah,
one day she tweeted like Allahu Akbar, which just means God is good in Arabic, and everyone lost their mind. And then she was criticizing APEC. No, this has nothing to do with Jewish people. This is just a bad lobby. Like this is
yeah,
a bad lobbyist organization. And anyway, like, and the problem is that there are people who use criticisms of Israel to be anti-Semitic, and that's a
yeah,
problem.
yeah,
I don't really get the impression that Ilhan Omar is, and she has apologized. Unlike,
yeah.
you know, that white nationalist guy in the Republican Party, where he flat out says, "Oh, what's
Steve
wrong with
King.
white nationalism?"
Wait, was it Steve King or what was
Yeah, Steve
Stephen
King,
Miller?
Iowa.
Yeah, yeah.
It's pretty disturbing that someone that far right it has a position in the U.S. government.
Yeah. Like I think Destiny was debating this right-leaning person. Like he said, Steve King's a white nationalist, and they were like, "Oh, well, why?" And he was like, "Well, he said some pretty disparaging things about Mexicans, like Mexican Americans." And I'm like, "You guys can't like it's so freaking obvious. Like, come on."
Mm-hmm. Like there are some people where okay, there's a bit of wiggle room. Like you can't necessarily pin them down as a racist. They say kind of like, I kind of see what
Yeah,
you're doing here.
like on the line, like they're on thin ice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But like with Steve King, like he flat up says, "What's wrong with being a white nationalist?" Like he's so obvious, and
And I
yet
think
some
like
people
some
still are like,
conservatives like because I remember like it was like I remember when like the conservatives I were around they were like nationalism just means patriotism. And I'm like nah. Like the difference between a patriot and a nationalist is a patriot is proud of their like nation, but I think at some points they're willing to criticize it when they do wrong. Nationalists, on the other hand, they don't care what the nation does. You know,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, well, guess what? America, like this benefits us. Like, we're the best country in the world. Things like that. And I
Mhm.
was actually talking like this one conservative who said he was a nationalist, and he said he was civic, but he was like, oh yeah, we have the best doctors in the world. We have the best healthcare system in the world. I'm like, well,
Uh,
the statistics say otherwise. And like I showed him, and he was like, oh, those statistics aren't real. Like we have the best. Like we can get the best doctors. And I'm just like, are you? What is wrong with you?
yeah, it just like at some point it just kind of seems like brainwashing, you know, just constantly thumping the drum. We are the best. We cannot improve in any way.
Hmm.
Everyone else is inferior to us. It's a very dangerous impulse.
Yeah.
But I've noticed this about like your content, not only on Twitter, but on
Mhm.
YouTube as well, that you tend to be very factually accurate and that you tend to like to look at the facts and to analyze them whenever you're making a point.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say like I'm like all knowing or like I'm just like some genius because I don't think that. Like like my philosophy is like there's always someone who's, I guess, this might sound demeaning or something, but like there's always someone who's like more intelligent or better at you than something. So like I remember like I had this friend. He was really good at Clash of Clans or
Mhm.
like yeah, and he wanted me to play it. And like I'm like, well, I don't really play games like that and I'm not really good at games like that. And yeah, guess what? I sucked at it. And you know, I told him like, you're better at me than this. Like I can't really play this game, every time I get on I lose. And he kept telling me to try it and I kept trying and I kept losing. So I was like, I'm not really good at games like this. So I guess that's where my philosophy first came from. It was like, well, there's always going to be someone better than you at something. I mean, you can work at it, but I guess it's up to the person as to whether like they want to keep going at it or not. But like when it comes to me in politics, like I'm gonna admit I don't know everything there is to know about politics. Like there's always something out there that I'm wrong about. And if I'm wrong, I'm willing to admit it. But I always try to be, I guess, factual and like rational whenever I'm trying to make a point. So like I don't know if you remember this, but remember the whole altercation I got into with Music Man Mike
Oh
over the
yeah, where he was like,
yeah, the whole PewDiePie thing.
yeah, like, oh, you're defending racism or something because you're like, I don't think that he necessarily meant to be anti-Semitic when he did
Hmm.
that song, even if it was a stupid joke and he shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, it was like I was trying to be like nuanced about it because I do think like with PewDiePie, like okay, how do I put this? Um, I think sometimes like dark, edgy humor, it can have a negative effect. Like
Mm.
freedom of like all these free speech advocates, like I think Dave Rubin and like Jordan B. Peterson, all they think is that, oh yeah, like when you say something offensive and people get mad, oh, well, you're against free speech. Oh, the left, and it's like freedom of speech doesn't equal freedom of consequence.
Mhm.
If I were to sit here and say, f all slur,
Yeah.
if I'm gonna say, yeah, well, it's edgy humor, that doesn't leave me from the consequences of saying something like that
Mhm.
because that can have negative consequences. Like, I still don't know what to think about this guy, but the Christchurch shooter, when he was
Oh yeah.
saying people like Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, they kind of, I guess, helped in him committing that act.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of people were like a lot of conservatives were very quick to defend them. They're like, "Oh, well, they're not really responsible because he's the one that ultimately did it." And I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean,
Ellen, it's an emergency. We need to use a computer.
Really?
Really.
What do you need to use it for?
She has to talk to her dance teacher.
Can't you use my computer?
I don't. Can we?
Yes.
Set it up then.
Okay, just a second. I'll be back.
all right."
Wish she wouldn't burst in on me like that. Just whisper.
Wait, I think you're I think hold on to the computer. I know, I was just
Come on, Mom. Come on. What do you...
Sweetie one, probably.
All you have to do is ask, Mom. It's right here. Right here, Mom.
Okay, why are you telling me? Why aren't you telling Eden?
I thought, because you're in the room, I want to get back to my... And you're kind of... Can you... Thank you. I don't know why you're angry at me. Sorry about that, everyone. Are you still around? I will explain what happened there.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, sorry. My sister can't find her costume for dance, and my mom wanted to send an email on this computer like right away, and I said, well, we have other computers in the house that you can use, and so I set it up for her on that, and now it's all sorted.
Yeah. You could even use Gmail on your phone and like other email apps.
Yeah, but my mom is...
Yeah, I know what you mean. My mom's kind of the same.
I don't know what it is with middle-aged people and technology, but for some reason it seems like they just can't figure anything out.
Yeah, I feel like our generation is gonna be like that, like in the future when they come up with more advanced stuff. That's why like I kind of don't really criticize like middle-aged and old people that much when they can't use technology because I'm like, when I'm like 40 or 50, they probably might come out with like some smartphone that like goes in your eye and I just don't know how to use it.
Yeah, although that sounds really painful and impractical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really sometimes I'm really curious for what the future will bring in terms of technology, but other times
Yeah.
I'm like pretty worried about what the future will bring.
Yeah, because like climate change and
Mhm.
like rising tensions are all over the world in terms of like politics and stuff like that. It's really nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it seems like the world could either head towards Star Trek or Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah.
And, I desperately hope for the former rather than the latter. But anyway, so where were we? I think we were talking about free speech and consequences.
Oh yeah. I think it was like with the whole PewDiePie thing.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. I guess I'll start over from where I was, like the whole Dave Rubin, Jordan B. Peterson thing, where
Mhm.
it's like, if you say something, it doesn't matter what it does. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you say. It's free speech. Like hate speech is free speech, and it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like,
Mhm.
but then again, that doesn't mean that we can't criticize them. So like
Yeah.
if a white nationalist is gonna tell me like, oh yeah, well you're black, if I were to make an ethno state, you wouldn't belong in there, blah blah blah. That doesn't mean I'm just supposed to sit back and say, oh well, that's your free speech. I'm not gonna read it. I'm just gonna sit here and take it. Like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like, I'm going to criticize you. And if you don't like it, then guess what? That's my free speech.
Mhm. Yeah.
I always try to play that card whenever like somebody comes up with that.
Yeah, it is pretty weird how some of these people on the right, they seem to want to create this own weird echo chamber where they can speak the most, the nastiest things they can say and the most
Yeah.
ignorant opinions they have.
And then they pull like the whole, oh yeah, what about Richard Pryor or George Carlin? Like they would make offensive jokes. And it's like, yeah, but they were really like, it was okay, they were offensive jokes, but it was more than that. Like they were I guess they were like commenting on like society.
Mm-hmm.
That's where their offensive jokes, like I guess, headed or like what they were. Like they were just commentary on society. So when you hear like Richard Pryor maybe make a joke about like white cops being oppressive towards black people, or George Carlin saying, well, geez, there are a lot of stupid people in the world. You know, that's just a commentary on society. It's not meant to verbally attack anyone. It's just to bring awareness to something versus things like with edgy humor, where it's like the most edginess crap, like oh yeah, I think all women should stay in the kitchen. It's like, okay, well, sure, but like, you know, do you really believe that? And it's like, well, no. But then you might have somebody that actually does believe that, and they're like, oh well, it's just a joke, you know. I'm just joking. I don't really think that.
Mhm. And that's the kind of way that, like, when you constantly make the same sort of, edgy jokes, it starts off as edgy jokes, but then eventually it just becomes people's real beliefs, and then it becomes indeterminate because they're always using,
And
it's a joke to defend what they actually believe.
Yeah, and I kind of talked to Mike afterwards because I DM'd him about the whole PewDiePie thing, and I was like, I kind of see where you're coming from because it's like PewDiePie constantly does this. Do I think he does it knowingly? Probably not. Like I'm still not even sure about that. Like with him hosting people like Jordan B. Peterson, uh, I think Ben Shapiro was like a host of his meme reviews. I don't think he knowingly like I want to say like he's probably ignorant of them. Like he doesn't know like, oh yeah, these are right-leaning people. They're part of like intellectual dark web. You know, maybe you should probably stay away from them because they have some bad opinions on things. Like I don't think he really knows that. But I just think like yeah, he thinks like he's just an edgelord. Like he's just being edgy. Like he really doesn't like I guess like there's no negative feedback to what he's doing. I guess that's like his whole opinion.
Yeah, I kind of think that like the left as a whole needs to handle PewDiePie in a better way because this is someone I personally really don't like and don't necessarily enjoy. But there are
I don't really watch his videos. I mean, when I was like
60 million people who do follow this guy pretty obsessively. So how to handle a platform of that size? And my thoughts are, we need to stop treating PewDiePie like he's Ben Shapiro or Jordan B. Peterson. And start treating him more like he's Logan Paul.
Right.
Like with Logan Paul, the criticism comes more like there's a lot more mockery to it, if you know what I mean, and a lot less panic and offense.
Right, like when he did the video in the suicide forest, and like a lot of people started making memes out of him, like I guess videotaping like that dead body. Like that there really wasn't any outrage like with PewDiePie. I mean, there was outrage, but it was just mainly like, oh, what's wrong with you? Or it was like either what's wrong with you or you need to get banned from the platform, or it was let's make like dark humor memes out of this.
Yeah. No, definitely. Like it seems like I don't know, like all these articles being like, PewDiePie is at the forefront of white supremacy. Yeah, I mean, obviously he's done very bad things and really kind of stupid things.
But
like I don't think his audience should necessarily be exposed to these figures like Jordan B. Peterson, Ben Shapiro.
And I think he accidentally, like, I don't know if it was even an accident. I think he like promoted this dude. I don't know if you heard his channel, E:*R.
Oh yeah, I heard about that back in December. And he's like really hardcore far right.
Yeah. And he was telling his like followers, well, go subscribe to him, like, okay. Because did PewDiePie, I'm like wondering, did PewDiePie know about E:*R, or did like somebody say, well, maybe you should like boost this person on your channel and like tell your followers to go follow him, like give him more views. And he just like willingly did it. Like he just ignorantly kind of walked into it.
Well,
like because I was watching the
if you want.
I was watching the Surf's video on the whole PewDiePie thing, and like he said he could be like the Mr. Magoo of racism. Like, because like Mr. Magoo, like the cartoon character, he just stumbles into like different obstacles, and he doesn't know the obstacles ahead of him. Like he just stumbles into it, and it's like some sort of potential dangerous thing, and somehow he's okay afterwards. But it's like really close, and I feel like PewDiePie could be that. Like he's just the Mr. Magoo of racism. Like he just stumbles into these things like unknowingly, and a lot of people, they just criticize him, and like he's really blind to it. He's just like, oh well, I was just being edgy. Like I didn't know like this would lead to this, or like this would happen. I didn't know about this person.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what's wrong with PewDiePie. Like I feel like that's where the problem is.
More like carelessness, although there have been like so many mistakes at a certain point you have to wonder.
Yeah, it's like that's the thing. Like I remember this quote, this one person told me, he was like, you make a mistake once, you can apologize. You make a mistake twice, you can apologize, but there's going to be consequences. You make the same mistake 3 times, there's no apologizing after that. Like there's no like, and I feel like with PewDiePie, like, okay, you did it once, all right, yeah, you know, it's probably a mistake. You did it twice, okay, it was a mistake, but just don't do it next time. And then he's done it so many times now, it's like, well, are these even mistakes? And I think that's why like people on the left are like really critical of him now, is because it's like he's done so many like, I guess, screwball things like over time now, that's just like, okay, well, is he really doing it on accident, or is he like purposely doing this? So I can kind of see like why people like Music Man Mike, they don't really like him, or they don't or like they're like, well, yeah, he is a Nazi because he's boosted this person, he's done this, he's done that. There's so many things that he's done that I guess it's like really difficult to try to find a reason to, I guess, defend him or even play devil's advocate.
Yeah, I don't think that he is a Nazi.
Right.
But what I would say is that I think he kind of became groomed into associating with a lot of right-wing circles. Like after that whole controversy where there was like, I think it was the Wall Street Journal that criticized him for, you know, a bunch of anti-Semitic jokes that he had made on his videos, you know, dressing up as Hitler, the whole death to all Jews sign. And also the resulting firestorm around.
Oh yeah, and he also did something where I think it was like it was like another one. It was like Fiverr, but it was a black guy in like a suit, and I think the black guy was African. He said Hitler did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Yes, there was also that. I think people were like criticizing him for that too, and then he said like the N-word twice on stream before. So
yeah. So with, you know, with all of these things, there was a segment of the right that immediately rose to, you know, defend PewDiePie and be like, oh no, you know, this is, you know, an example of political correctness gone too far, insane, trying to silence comedy, whatever. And as a result, PewDiePie is like, oh, okay, these people are defending me, I'll follow them. But what started to happen is that he began to cultivate a circle with people like, you know, Stefan Molyneux, you know, what's her face, Lauren Southern, Sarah Cod, all these, you know, really right-wing racist figures.
Oh wait. He's not right-wing, he's a liberal.
Oh. I think he calls himself a liberalist now.
Yeah, he started like a whole movement, the liberalist movement or something like that.
I think Sargon of Akkad is a figure that like no one across the political spectrum takes seriously anymore. Like I get the impression
that even the alt-right doesn't
hates him. Like I thought it was really embarrassing that even, you know, someone with an ideology as toxic and contradictory and stupid as Richard Spencer, he still somehow lost the debate. He still somehow came off as the more idiotic member there. I didn't even think it was possible, but he did it. And, you know, the internet is still kind of dealing with the consequences of the fall of skeptic YouTube.
Yeah, it's like a domino effect. It's like you knock down one, then all the other dominoes start to fall. Like that's how I kind of feel about it.
Yeah, I do definitely get that impression. And then there's like, I think that's the way though, going back to my point on PewDiePie, I think that is a danger with a lot of people, that the more sort of far right figures that you kind of accept into the sunlight, the more that you know, kind of see them as friends and associates and people with worthwhile opinions that you should platform and respect, the more their opinions become kind of normal, the less normal they seem.
That's what happened to you heard about Soph, Lieutenant Corvus, right?
Oh yeah, that
Yeah, that's like the most recent one, and like what's like the Russian YouTuber no fuckers? Yeah, that's his name, no fuckers.
mm,
He made a video about that, and he was like, this is what happens, like people like Soph, you know, or just children, maybe people who are like maybe ignorant of politics or ignorant of, you know, like, internet culture, they can easily fall into this, where they start off small and then it's just a pipeline to more extreme
yeah.
opinion.
What
Yeah.
starts off as a joke becomes your unironic views.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is definitely that danger, and I think it is really sad seeing like this 14-year-old
Yeah.
reciting these really racist, really awful opinions.
Yeah, because me and my friend, we were talking about that, and he was like, "Well, are you mad at her?" I'm like, "No, I'm not mad. I'm just kind of, I guess, upset because it's like she's only 14, and she like I used to watch her content like for a 12 when she started off, like I think she was 12, for like a 12-year-old, like she had some pretty, I guess, not good, like okay opinions. Like she was smart, and
Yeah,
it's like, you know, it's just so sad to see like someone like that just like fall down
yeah.
into.
It just like this intellectual decay, the internet poisoning someone's mind. I
Yeah.
felt like there was this really telling story that came out, I don't know, about 2 years ago about this robot who was, it took only like a few days, and she was taught to kind of respond to messages that people were sending her and to become influenced by what they were saying. And after only about 4 days of exposure to internet culture, she became like really far right,
Wow.
fascist.
Yeah, it's like I don't know why it reminds me of like it was like a not a yeah, maybe a study like or a test, but it was uh it was this woman in a room, and like she was sitting down, like there were people around her. And so whenever the bell rang, the people would stand up. So at first she was like really confused. Like I think anybody would be confused by that. Like, okay, why is everybody standing up? So then they kept doing it till eventually she started standing up with them. Now she didn't know why she was standing up. She just, I guess she was like, oh well, whenever the bell rings, you know, we're supposed to stand up. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody started walking out the room, and the bell kept ringing, and she kept standing up while everybody was leaving. So eventually, another person who's not exposed to the bell, they come in the room, and when the bell rings, she stands up, and then the person looks at her weird, and he's like, "Well, why are you standing up?" And she's like, "Well, I guess when the bell rings, we're supposed to stand up." And so
Yeah.
eventually, he started standing up. It's kind of like, I guess, some sort of, I don't know if that is classical conditioning, or I don't know, but it's basically it's like conditioning the person to, I guess, conform.
Yeah. It's just, no, that's a good word for it, conditioning.
Hmm.
And I don't know, like, I think, and here's another thing, a feeling I have about the whole PewDiePie, Lieutenant Corvus, all these internet figures that at first seemed to ordinary people to be kind of, fairly apolitical,
Yeah, just
fairly,
like purely comments.
and then they kind of gradually descend
Hmm.
more and more towards a right-leaning perspective. And this whole idea of the anti-SJW to alt-right pipeline. I don't know. I hear these ideas, and I'm like, yes, these criticisms of the dangers of the internet, they're well-founded. But a problem I think I'm starting to see in the left and liberalism is that I don't necessarily see there to be an effective response, is that there doesn't seem to be a movement on the other end to see how the internet can be used as a tool for good, as a tool for enlightenment, as a tool for
Yeah, like
education, as a tool for conversation. And I'm really worried that too much of the liberal left or the left in general will fall into just kind of a fear of the internet and kind of a hatred of social media and a hatred of YouTube and a hatred of all these sorts of platforms without
hmm
any sort of understanding that this is where the conversation is taking place now. This is the, I hate to use this term, but battleground of the 21st century. And if we don't want to be left behind in the dust, we have to figure out a way to effectively utilize the internet as a tool to spread our philosophy as well.
Yeah, like I kind of feel that way. Like the left tends to be like really dogmatic when it comes to certain things. So like I like this term, it kind of it's like when like leftists say like diversity is our greatest strength. Well, it's like, okay, is it? Or like I'm trying to think of other ones, but I can't really think of other ones. But it's like sayings like that. It's like, well, is it really? Like we have to try to, I guess, come up with rational arguments. And then when you have uh like right-leaning figures, when they come out with things on the internet, um I guess like with left YouTubers and like left content creators, or like left people on the internet in general, they're really hard to come by. Like I didn't like when I was on YouTube in the anti-SJW sphere and like the right leaning part of it, I didn't even know that there were any left YouTubers. Like I thought like this was it. I thought that like Sargon, some black guy, Blair White,
Yeah.
Many anti-SJWs, I thought like, yeah, this is it. These are all the political people on YouTube who like make their own content. They have their own opinions. This is it. I didn't think that there was somebody like ContraPoints or H-Bomber guy or Sean and Jin. I didn't think of that. But I guess that's another problem, is that there's so much of, I guess, don't want to say anti-SJW, but like right-leaning content on YouTube that for some people, it's really hard to find people on the left on platforms, because there's so much right-leaning stuff.
Yeah, and I think this creates kind of a snowball effect where people who are on the left become almost afraid to put themselves out there on YouTube, on social media. They feel like, okay, like we're almost being drowned by this, the sheer wave of content. Like, our voice doesn't even stand a chance. Why even bother speaking about it anyway? And then you have kind of this dynamic where huge right-leaning YouTubers will search all the way through the internet to find these tiny little left-wing channels making, kind of a bad point or a silly sounding point if you take it out of context, and use that for their content.
Yeah.
And it creates this effect where they try to use their massive platform to stamp on the small ones before they actually get a chance to grow.
Right. Like that's my biggest problem, is that they try to go for low-hanging fruit. So when you see people like Ben Shapiro, they don't really like talk to any big leftists. So like I don't see Ben Shapiro talking to like David Pakman or Kyle Kalinske or Sam Cedar, because in my opinion, he just goes after low-hanging fruit. So people like college students, like, okay, I don't really care about what some like leftist blue-haired college student has to say. Like like you can even tell that they're ignorant of politics when they ask him a question, and it's like, okay, he's like, yeah, now you're playing into my hand, because now I can easily just go against what you're saying. So I remember it was one time where I think this college student, I think she asked him like, why won't you use trans people's like preferred gender pronouns? And he was like, oh yeah, because that's not their actual gender. Like they were born as this, so I'm not going to refer to them as like what they want to be called. And she really couldn't. She was on the right track at first, but then eventually you could tell she didn't quite get what he was saying. Like she couldn't really find a point to like go against. And I feel like that's another thing that I'm very critical on Ben Shapiro, is what he does is, I don't know if it's Gish Gallop, but he just really relays his points very quickly to the point you can't say anything. So it's like too much information to take in at one time.
Yeah, kind of a motor mouth.
Right.
It's very much intentional. Like the whole point of it is what he's trying to make himself appear smart by bludgeoning his opponent with words. And the reason he goes after these, uninformed college students, that they're easy pickings. But at the same time, it preserves the illusion that the right is interested in debate, when in fact they're only interested in picking low-hanging fruit and not really responding to reasoned and strong criticisms of their ideas.
Yeah. Like with Dave Rubin, I guess you could say he's kind of a libertarian, but I really think he's right leaning. Like he may think like, yeah, I'm a classical liberal. Well, you tend to have like very right leaning views, and you tend to agree with a lot of right leaning people. And on your show, you tend to have right leaning people. Like I rarely see him have a left leaning person on his show. And then when people are like, well, why won't you debate Sam Cedar? Like just debate Sam Cedar. A person's even like super chatted him this on one of his streams, and he's like, oh no, I'm not going to do that. And it's like, well, why aren't you going to do it? Like, you guys always do this. Like you said, like they're like, oh yeah, the left isn't open to debate. All they're open to is just shouting and yelling at you. Well, it's like, no, there are genuine leftists out there who would love to debate you. Which is why I like Destiny, because I know like a lot of his followers, they like, oh well, why don't you debate leftists? It's like because with right-leaning people, I'm gonna keep relaying back to this point that you made because it was really good. That basically the left doesn't want to debate. And when you encounter people like Destiny who do want to debate and they actually do seem to have like informed opinions and they do have like I guess resources and research to back them up on it, it's like, okay, well, do I really want to debate this person? Like, oh no. And Destiny, like when he encounters a right-leaning person, like I think I've seen some people say like, oh yeah, Destiny should debate Dave Rubin or Ben Shapiro or Jordan Lee Peterson or even Stefan Molyneux. It's like, oh, then they're like, oh well, no, I don't want to debate. I don't want to debate them. Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to go after them. It's like, well, why? You basically say the left doesn't want to debate you. Now you have a leftist who wants to debate you, and it's like you don't want to debate them. And I don't know if this is a good analogy, but it reminds me of like a toddler who keeps begging for a cookie from a cookie jar, and they're like, oh, give me a cookie, give me a cookie. And you're like, no, 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 no. And then finally, when you give them the cookie, they don't want to take it, and it's like, you've been asking for it for this much, and now when it's in front of you, you don't want to take the opportunity to like jump on and say, okay, well, let's have a debate with a person who doesn't like meet my viewpoint.
Yeah. Yeah, because an actual debate is risky because it has the potential to go wrong for either ideological perspective. And if you gain a reputation as a loser in the battlefield of ideas, then people are not going to want to keep supporting you financially and will stop looking up to you as some sort of intellectual paragon. But if you pick on really dumb people, the worst of the worst on each intellectual, camp, then you maintain that reputation as an intellectual, as a intelligent, brilliant person who's capable of destroying the opposition.
Yeah, I think I've seen people criticize Destiny for that, but I'm like, well, he's kind of went after people like who I guess most right wingers would consider intellectuals. So like, I think he has had debates with Nick Fuentes. He's had debates with Lauren Southern. Uh, who else? Like, I wouldn't consider no bullshit because I feel like he's just like a big edgelord. Like, I don't think people actually think he's smart. I just think people watch no bullshit because he's entertaining. And that's another thing. Like, and I really feel this way about my videos too for some reason. Like, I feel like they're not entertaining enough. Like, because when you see people like ContraPoints, she's really informative, but she's also very entertaining to watch because she has different costumes, different props. She uses maybe like different memes or different like comedic things in her videos that get her audience to pay attention to her. And like, I don't know, like I feel that way about my videos. It's just like it's more focused on being informative rather than being entertaining. Like I would like to be entertaining, but then again, I also want to be informative. And sometimes I feel like I do it too much. And I feel like that's the problem with some left tubers is they tend to like be more informative than entertaining, and they don't really find a balance. Versus people on the anti-SJW side where it's like, yeah, let's be entertaining, you know, like they have the entertainment value, they have the attraction, you know, they can get more people to watch them and like actually stay focused on them. You know, I just that's how I kind of feel. I don't know, like I don't think it's like not gonna say it's like the be all end all like observation, but I just something I kind of notice.
No, I definitely feel that way about my videos as well. You know, I very, very rarely make a proper video. Um, I feel like, first of all, super insecure about the editing. Second of all, super insecure about my looks. Third of all, super, super concerned that it will come across as too boring, too dull, not enough motion.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, you know, be that kind of dour lecturer, you know, that drones on and on and on about some sort of obscure book by Trotsky, a monotonous voice, and then making basically no real sort of intellectual contribution, just reciting big words. I don't want to be that sort of person. I want to be someone who's able to connect to people, someone who is able to have a conversation with people, be presentable to people. But also, I do want to have that information there, and it's a really tough balance.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And I don't know, it's just it is. I think that's a very good point. It's really interesting to me how, you know, the left is supposed to be all about, you know, anti-classism, all about openness to the working class, all about making things, you know, resources accessible to everyday people. And yet our intellectual material, the videos that we're putting out, or the books that we're writing, the studies we're researching, they're all written in this dull, academic, completely inaccessible language.
And it's like with the other side, it's like, yeah, well, you know, we'll just have like the upper hand on the entertainment value. Even though I feel like people like Ben Shapiro, they do fall into like, I guess like the left sort of thing, where it's like they sound like a lecturer. But I think Ben Shapiro gains traction because of like, you know, the oh, libtard destroyed, liberal tears sort of thing.
Yeah. That's the another thing about why they don't want a real debate. It's less entertaining when it's more balanced. If you have two people that are basically making competent arguments for their positions, that's much less entertaining than a complete moron being destroyed by someone who basically has all the facts and all the ability to present the facts in a coherent manner.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's sort of cathartic for some people though, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm not that guy, you know, like the guy that's getting like wrecked by Ben Shapiro. I'm not that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's intellect. You know, you feel flattered for agreeing with the smart guy rather than the dumb guy. No, there's definitely that dynamic as well. I don't know. It's a real conundrum because on one hand, I feel like every time I I move towards including all this information in my videos, I risk becoming uninteresting, dull, and monotonous. But on the other hand, if I move more towards a stylistic presentation, then I worry that my videos are going to become empty, airheaded, basically so simple and basic that it's not really worth anything to anyone. Just pretty pictures on a screen.
Right.
What was that?
Oh, that was a notification. You know, I'm just gonna turn off the. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, it was my girlfriend texting me. So.
Oh, very nice. Okay, I don't know if this is something you necessarily want to get into on stream, but I've known that there's a lot of people on Twitter who give you shit for being in an interracial relationship.
Yeah, I don't really care. It's like, you know, I just don't understand why people have that sort of view. So like, people like, well, not direct interaction, but like when Nick Fuentes, when he was having a like big debate, I think it was like Destiny, Hassan Piker, uh, Trainwrecks, and I think Sargon was in it too. I forgot the third like left leaning person because they did keep it even, but I forgot his name. I think it was like Osman Gold or something like that. I don't know, but
Heard
Yeah,
of a gold character.
Yeah, I gotta just do something right quick. I'll be back.
All right, great. I suppose now is as good a time as any to go through the chat and listen to some of their lovely little contributions. Let's see here. The relationships leftists have with popular culture is difficult to explain to normies because we can find some things problematic but love it, and normies believe that critique means censorship. No, actually, that's a very good point. That's very, very true. There's a lot of people who think that to criticize means to attack, and I think that's why it's important to present your critiques in a very elegant way. To present them as fair-minded as possible, as opposed to someone like, say, Mysterious Mr. Enter, who might turn a critique of media into a attack on the artist and like a moral failing on the artist. Sorry, I know it sounds like I'm talking to myself, but I was actually going through some of the very interesting opinions of the people in the chat.
No, that's cool. But yeah, like when Fuentes, he was like, I think they asked him like, how do you feel about interracial relationships? And he was like, oh, I don't think that they should be like, I guess, promoted in media. And that kind of confused me because I'm like, well, is Nick really that ignorant that he doesn't realize that over time, interracial marriage and dating have became something that's very acceptable in society, unlike like I'd say like 50 years ago. And of course, like advertisers, they see this trend. Like this is the purpose of like why advertisers are so successful, is because they look for trends in society and they play on that. And so like a trend now is like, well, there's more interracial couples than there were in say like 1960 something. And it's like, okay, well, now we can build off of that. Like there's more interracial families, so we can have interracial families in media. And that's why it's being promoted. And it's like, he's so ignorant, he doesn't understand that. And I kind of find it funny that someone who doesn't want the promotion of interracial relationships is a product of one. Like, it's just really ironic.
Yeah, there's a lot of these like, not very white nationalists. Like I think this edgy Sphinx character is an Egyptian.
Really?
Yeah. Nick Fuentes obviously is Hispanic. Let's see.
I remember somebody, I think Destiny like asked this one like alt-writer, because it was a debate about building an ethno state, and he was like, well, would you let Nick Fuentes in? And he's like, yeah, I think I would. And he's like, well, he's Hispanic. And like Destiny, he asked him like, would you let me in? And he's like, I don't know what you look like. So he sent him a picture, and he's like, do I look pretty white? And he was like, yeah. He was like, well, I'm like half Cuban. He was like, so I mean, I don't think I really fit in.
That's the hilarious thing. Like these non-white white nationalists, to me, it's almost like a weird kind of protective coloration. It's like they think, if I join the racists, maybe they won't turn against me.
Yeah, it's like the meme, like, yeah.
You okay?
Oh, I'm fine. Yeah, that was my mom. But it's like the meme where, this might sound pretty edgy, but the meme where it's like with like the school shooter, where it's like, oh yeah, if I'm friends with the school shooter, like if something happens, they won't like freaking attack me. I kind of feel like it's that way with like non-white white nationalists, where it's like, okay, let me join them, so like when something does happen, I'm not the one that gets attacked or like displaced.
Yeah. I'll be welcomed into the ethno state because I helped build it.
Right.
Yeah, it's really weird, but it's also very sad.
Yeah, but like with the interracial relationship thing, like it's just like I don't get why it's a problem. Like I just don't understand why it's such a big issue. I guess like because with alt-writers, they're driven by fear. Like that's the main key component. Like it's like a fear of being replaced, or a fear of like not being noticed in society. Like whenever you hear their arguments, like, oh yeah, the United States, it used to be like 90% white. Now, within like 50 years, it's like what? It's like 61% white. Like, why is that happening? And it's like you can hear like fear coming from them, and it's just like, oh man, I don't understand why it's something to be afraid of.
Well, I mean, maybe they're worried that the same thing that they did to minorities will happen to them.
Yeah, that's like because I remember like my sociology teacher when I was taking sociology, she
Mm.
kind of said that because I kind of asked her like, did you know about like the alt right and all that, and she said yeah, and I was like, well, why are they like so afraid of like why are they afraid like oh yeah, there's like reverse racism, and I do think like you can be racist to white people,
Mm.
like or like at least prejudice, if that turns
Yeah.
out that's not a thing, you can be prejudiced, and I think like you should treat them with respect unless they're being complete total assholes. But
Yeah.
it's like it's like yeah, she was saying that it's just like a fear, like they're afraid of like what they did to minorities, well it's going to come back and bite them,
Hmm.
and it kind of is in a way. But
Yeah. Another thing about white nationalists, well, this is necessarily white nationalists or necessarily even about racists, depending on your perspective. But I thought it was pretty interesting how people who voted Trump, they weren't actually like the poor white working class people that everyone was portraying them as.
yeah.
They're actually fairly middle to upper middle class white people.
Hmm.
But the main way that you could tell that someone would be a Trump supporter is that they lived in an area with very little diversity, that they lived in very segregated areas. And
Yeah.
part of me thinks that maybe um, the, uh, the great fear of white nationalists and the great fear of these people is coming from a lack of understanding, a fundamental lack of contact. And that's why
Yeah.
it's so easy for them to dismiss the humanity of, Black people, Jewish people, people of color in general,
Hmm.
because they have no relation with them, because they live in
Yeah.
such a segregated, homogenous society, that the thought of difference, of the thought of this diversity, this diversity that you can even see, face to face, it frightens them so much because they have no experience with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, when they started like desegregating schools and like they started putting like black kids in like white schools, like at first, yeah, relationships were rocky, of course. Like this is still a time where there's like heavy racial, I guess, conflict. But over time, the, like both sides kind of saw each other as like, well, yeah, we're human beings. Yeah, we're equal. Like we may have some things in common. Like, like maybe like you and this one person, maybe you guys both like the same genre of music, maybe you guys both like the same books or like the same TV shows or something, or like I think that's the problem. Like they don't think that they have things in common with certain like people. So like when you hear like a white nationalist, because I think I'm just gonna tell you, I watch a lot of Destiny debates, and like he had one with a white nationalist, and they were debating white and black culture, and damn, I don't even know the point I'm trying to make right now. But the whole gist is that he basically like things that he was saying like are unique to white people. Well, there could be a black person that could like the same thing that you like. There could be an Asian person that likes the same thing you like. Like I think Destiny was like telling him like, I'm friends with a lot of Asian people and like we both have a lot of things in common. Like we hang out, we play music together, we go out and eat, we watch anime together, we play video games together. He was like, there's so many things that we have in common. He's like that race isn't like a primary factor.
Yeah. And another thing is that I think the elements of the effects of living in a global society, are so prominent that I think if you actually remove them, a lot of people they wouldn't really like the world that they want to live in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many this is really weird to me, but a lot of far left people and a lot of far right people both watch a ton of anime. I have no idea why this
Yeah.
is, but it seems to be a thing. But the point I'm trying to make is, the things they watch. Say they watch anime. Say they love to eat Mexican food. all of these things in their, white ethno state, removed of all globalist influences, they disappear. All this, even America, like America works so badly in terms of a country that is homogenous, because it is, first of all, it is a country, not only, it's a culture of a bunch of disparate cultures from all over Europe, and now from all around the world, coming to one place and being kind of melted into this weird mush of all the different aspects.
Yeah, like a melting pot.
Even, and trying to untangle that culture. I can't even, trying to imagine how that would work, how you would try to construct a homogenous culture from all these different elements. It just
right. And then even like within like white culture, there's subcultures. Like there's like a German person and a French person probably aren't going to have the same culture. So yeah, there might be some conflict that exists between them. Or like a Scottish person, oh my God, Scottish person and an English person, or an English person and an Irish person, even though like sometimes they'll deny that Irish people are white, but they are. Like there's there's like different subcultures, and it's like I don't see like how would you fit all these like different, I guess, ethnicities of, I guess, like using whiteness in to like your white ethno state. Like I don't get it.
Yeah, it's so true. Like people talk about Black culture, white culture. What Black culture? Black people from all over the world have very different.
Wait, and then they'll tell you something like, "Oh, rap music," and it's like, well, me and a Nigerian person, we're probably not gonna like rap music equally. Or ooh, like the most racist response I ever hear, the NBA. It's like, okay, that's really stupid, because that's not inherently Black culture. Like it's just a sports league that happens to have like a predominant, like a high percentage of Black athletes in it. Like that's all it is. It's not Black culture. It's not even anyone's culture. It's just a sport. It's like a sports league. That's all it is.
But it's really weird how like these random like little cultural things will become associated with a different group.
Yeah.
Like there's this weird like disco is gay,
Yeah, I never got that. It's like it's not. Or like, oh, or like musicals are gay. It's like, nah.
It's just strange. I don't really understand why like these little things acquire
like a race attached to it.
Yeah, race, gender, sexuality, what have you. It's so weird.
Like I remember like when I was in high school, like it was junior year, and this girl, she was white. The high school I went to from junior to senior, it was really diverse, and that's what I liked about it, because you got to like meet a lot of different people from like, I guess, different experiences than you, and you kind of get to see like, I guess, in some way like what their life is like. She was telling me like she asked me like what's my favorite salad dressing. It was, I guess she was trying to get to know me, and like I like ranch, I like ranch dressing on salad, and she said there was some sort of plum sauce that she puts on her salad, and this Black kid, he was like, oh, that's some white people shit, and I'm like, nah, I'm like, I would be kind of open to trying that, it might taste good, I'd be open to it. And he kind of looked at me weird, and he was like, "You'd actually try that?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, you don't know until you try something. I don't know.
I don't know that, that is a bit of a weird thing, the whole plum sauce. The only thing I've ever heard plum sauce being used on before is like spring rolls.
Yeah. I don't know why she. I guess because it was like, it was probably just, a thing for her. I guess like it was good, but yeah, like that's the only time I really hear about plum sauce is like uh spring rolls, like you said.
So going through like my little list of things that are going on lately, what did you think of that picture of the black hole everyone's
Oh,
raising.
that's interesting. That's actually pretty cool that we actually got a picture because it's like for so long humanity like we know what black holes are, but we just didn't know what they look like because like there's so many interpretations. Like some people think a black hole, like thought a black hole literally just looked like a black hole, like it was just black.
Yeah,
Some people thought like it had like what Interstellar, the movie, when they had the black hole in it, it's like a white beam of light with like a line going through or something like
yeah,
that. And we finally got the picture, so it's like, okay, we now have some sort of idea of what it looks like. I think it's cool. Looks
yeah.
nice.
Now it kind of looks like Sauron.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But for some reason, like there was a weird segment of the internet that decided that this was like a culture war issue, and that baffled me. Why, when you see a really cool picture of black hole, do you suddenly have to be like, no, you know,
Yeah, it was this
women
one
in
chick.
feminism? Like
I don't,
Bruce V, he was like, oh, this is just a globo homo psyop. You know,
huh.
actually, the black hole was discovered ages ago by men, not women.
Yeah, because they were like it was like a whole big issue over like this, like the woman being involved. I forgot her name, but it was like a whole issue over that like some people were celebrating her. They were like, oh yeah, she like women in science, like this is a perfect example of why we need them. And like there were other people like Roosh who were like, oh, this isn't a woman's thing. Like women are supposed to be doing this. Women are supposed to be in a kitchen fixing me a sandwich. Like this is not something that's like woman like. And it's like, I don't see why it's such a big issue. Like, she had a part in this discovery, which is great. But then again, like, I kind of like had a problem how people were like, I guess thinking she was a sole proprietor of it.
Yeah, well,
Like
obviously,
there are other people involved, I think that they deserve credit. But then again, kudos to her. Like,
like behind every scientific discovery, you'll have one person who gets the credit, but
hmm
always remember that there's like a team of at least a dozen people usually
yeah.
working behind them and that are contributing to it,
hmm
just as much.
Yeah. But like I saw this one post. I don't know if you saw it, but it was like this one chick. She was like American nationalist. Like that's what she had in her bio.
Oh
And
no.
she said she was like nerds really get off to this. It was something like that. And a lot of people like basically responded to her.
What's the
Oh
ratio?
no, she said nerds really believe this. And I think I retweeted and I was like, yeah, just like you believe in nationalism. Something like that.
Yeah, she what? Uh, trust it to someone who has American nationalist in their bio have the worst hot take.
Yeah, I was like, it's not even a hot take. It was just like a dumb thing to say. It's like nerds really believe in this. It's like, well, yeah, it's cool. And then did you see Romy Millennials post on the
Like,
thing?
what a waste of money. We should not be spending this
Yeah.
money.
She's like, "Oh yeah, we don't need all this money for this space stuff." I'm like, "It's not even space stuff. Like it's like I think it's good that we should understand the universe because sometimes it does feel kind of like lonely, I guess. Like, like we're just like a small like well, okay, not really a blue ball, but like we're a small little, I guess, rock just like floating around like the sun. And like, it can feel like, well, what if there's something like what's out there, you
Yeah.
know? And I think it's good that we are doing that because it does lead like there are certain materials in space that you can't find on Earth and like they can be really helpful back on Earth, which is why a lot of people are saying space mining could like actually be a good thing.
Well, I definitely think that space mining could be pretty good because that way it could help prevent contaminating our planet
Mhm.
with the waste of
Yeah.
regular mining that we have here on Earth and the huge amount of waste. Yeah, and it's really just environmentally destructive for whatever
Mhm.
region you end up mining in. Not to mention, hopefully mining ends up getting mostly automated. And I'm not the type of person to really wish that most jobs get automated, but mining is just such an awful job, especially
Yeah,
something
it
like
is.
coal mining. It's miserable.
Yeah, and like some of the workers, they eventually end up with like health problems, like breathing problems from breathing in like all the particles and stuff. It's really a dangerous job.
Hmm. Yeah, it's It's yeah. But anyway, like even if there weren't all these benefits to exploring space, I think sometimes just learning is its own reward. Knowledge doesn't always have to be useful. Knowledge doesn't always have to be meaningful as anything else but knowledge. And we should try to pursue as much knowledge as we can while we still are here on this earth.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like Lauren, what was it? Another Lauren. Lauren Chen, I think.
Yeah, that's Roaming Millennial.
Formerly Roaming Millennial.
Yeah.
Now she's decided to rebrand because she decided that Roaming Millennial sounds cringy. Isn't it this really weird thing that conservatives do where like conservative millennials would be like, ugh, millennials, talking about people who are usually Gen Z?
Yeah, Tim Pool did that in his recent video on it was an Instagram model. She got her account taken down because it kept getting spammed by certain people. And she made a whole video crying over it. And I was like, she should be, because maybe that was the one way how she got like her income and like something she probably really enjoyed doing. And no, and here's the thing about 9 to 5 jobs, in my opinion, nobody wants to work a 9 to 5. Like I feel like people do it to just get the basic necessities in life, like housing, food, maybe some clothes.
It's a necessity. You do it because you have,
right?
Not because like there's no one out there who's like, my dream was to be a cashier at McDonald's.
Some people, because there are some people out there who do enjoy like working at McDonald's, but it's like most people, they just get into 9 to 5s just for something to make like a little bit of money so that they can just get by. Like they don't do it as a long-term thing, although some people do, but most of the time it's like they fall into it by accident. But Tim Pool, he was like he was really just fucking stupid. He kept saying, this is the problem with millennials. Like, oh, millennials are so entitled to everything. And it's like, well, I've met some people from like the baby boomer generation who feel entitled to certain things. Like, I think like, no, I think there's always going to be entitled people no matter what generation you come from. And I think the reason why like Gen Z and the millennials are so entitled is because like we have more opportunities than other generations had.
Yeah.
Like now there's like certain things that you can do as a job that you probably wouldn't even imagine. Like in the video, I found this to be like a really dumb question he asked, but he was like, oh, would you rather play video games all day or like do back breaking work on a farm? And I'm like, well, you can actually make money off of playing video games. Like if you master your craft, if you network with certain people, maybe if you find a team or a league or a certain game you're good at, well, you can make money off of that. Even Twitch streaming, like streaming video games, you can make money off of that. Being a gaming YouTuber, you can make money off of that. Like there's more opportunities with that than like doing back-breaking work on a farm. And eventually, like I'm not saying video games doesn't cause health problems, because they do, but like with back-breaking work, it's like, okay, yeah, there's certain health problems with that are long term. Like what if you actually break your back, or like what if you I guess like injure like your leg or like your arm or something, and like you're not going to be the same anymore. And that's the thing.
And after that, how are you going to continue to make a living doing backflips on a farm?
Or like that's how I feel. It's just like you don't just tell someone like, and he kept saying this during the video. He's like, I feel bad for her, but it's like, okay, you really don't feel bad for her. Essentially, what you're telling her is, okay, listen, I know that you really worked hard to build this thing up. And he even kept saying this. He's like, she really worked hard to build this thing up. Like she was an influencer. Like she had like I think 113,000 followers on her Instagram page.
Impressive.
And he's like, she built this thing up, and like to have it taken away, that really hurts. But working a 9 to 5 isn't bad. Like it's not the end of the world. Like you could be a waitress. And I'm like, dude, she was probably making more money on her Instagram page than a waitress was making in like a full week. Like, come on. And also like I think they said like she was using the money to pay off her student debt. So it's like, okay, that's another thing. Maybe she was getting more money for that and other things than obviously working as a waitress, because like most of the time when you work as like 9 to 5 jobs, you're not going to get a lot to pay off student loans right away. And I think that's the problem. It's like Certain people like when they're in college and they get student loans, uh, like the obvious thing is like, yeah, you can do work study, or you can do like go find a job out there like a Starbucks waitress or something. Well,
Yeah.
not waitress, barista. Okay. Well, first of all, that's a minimum wage job. Not saying that service jobs aren't bad. Like I do think like they are necessary. But you know, just don't get like caught in them in the long term.
Mm.
Like
Well,
always kind of look at
sometimes it can be a bit of a dead end career, but I don't think there's any sort of shame in
right.
working as a waitress or a cashier or wherever.
Yeah, I kind of hate that when some people do that because it's like it's discrediting their work. It's like, well, they are like serving us, you know, they are a service to us. I think that we should appreciate them.
Yeah,
Just like
exactly. Like
just like we would appreciate like a teacher.
people who are helping you and serving you and your waiters, and you just treat them like dirt. It's just classism. You know, you just
Yeah.
have a bit of authority over someone, and because you
Mhm.
have authority pretty much no other time in your life, you're going to use that tiny little bit that you have to be a dick.
Yeah, it's really bad. But it's like, you know, just it's like we should appreciate them. And you know, if you want to do a 9 to 5 as like something like to get, I guess, like a little money on the side, or like to get the basic necessities, and yeah, go for it. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like I actually wish that I was like currently working a little bit right now, because like I like it also gives you experience for like the job field. Like if you work a retail job, um, like you might learn how to communicate with people, you might learn how to manage money, you might learn how like different things work within that, and that could actually help you in the career field. And it's like there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just, I guess, like the best advice is just don't get caught into it in the long run. Like always kind of look for it. So like, say if you want to be like a probably like the, I guess, like a go-to answer, like cliche, but say you want to be like a lawyer or a doctor.
Mm.
Okay, like if you need money to like help pay for stuff off for like college or like just basic necessities right now, yeah, go for a 9 to 5, you know, just do that. But don't get caught in it in the long term, because, well, one, you probably don't want to do that for a long time. Like you want to be this. So, you know, just yeah, just don't get caught in it in the long run. And I think that's what Tim Pool was like doing. He was like, oh, you know, maybe you could just work a service job. Oh, like fuck back off to the free market. It doesn't matter if you were a fucking Instagram influencer, like, you know, you were making tons of money. Like, oh, just go back to the free market.
Mm.
And it's like he has this sort of like pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality.
Oh no.
I hate that. And look, I think, okay, like, okay, working hard, sure, but also work smart. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like network with certain people, you know, look for opportunities like internships and whatnot. Uh damn, I'm trying to think of something else, but I can't think right now. But basically, you work smart. You don't like, okay, yeah, work hard, but you shouldn't be just working hard. You should also be working smart.
Well,
And I
also,
think the problem with people like
yourself to the bone, then
right.
you actually work less effectively.
Hmm.
Like say you have like I don't know. This is like a fictional scenario. I think it's probably impossible to do. Say you work for like 14 days straight, 10 hours a day, but then you're bone tired the entire time and can actually function. How useful is that? How productive will you actually be on your job? And how much satisfaction are you going to be able to get out of life?
Hmm. And this is what I kind of feel like about, because the number one place where this bullshit opinion comes from is conservatives. And I remember like when I was a conservative and I surround myself around more conservatives than now, that was the biggest opinion. It's like, oh, black people, the only reason they're in poverty is because like, oh, they don't work hard enough. It's not that, I don't think it's that, and here's my opinion on like poverty. It's not that black people don't work hard enough or they're lazy. It's just that they're not really given or know about opportunities out there in the world. And
Mm.
this is why I think like we should be funding more black, like more schools in the black area to actually help with educating like black youth and like actually telling them about job opportunities and stuff like that. Because that's the problem. They're not getting notified about it. And then that also plays into like things with sex ed. It's like usually in black areas, they really don't know a lot about sexual education. Uh and they don't have access to like certain contraceptives, which is why you see high numbers of like black babies being born out of wedlock and even black abortion numbers. It's like, yeah, because the only thing that we're telling them, the only thing that's being told to black kids is like, oh yeah, just wear a condom, or then oh yeah, Planned Parenthood, they're always there. Like if you want an abortion, just go get it. And that's the problem. And they don't even realize that. It's like so fucking frustrating.
Mm.
But anyway, like with the pull yourself up by the bootstraps and like work hard. Because like same conservatives I was talking to, he basically, because I remember I asked him like, what class are you in? Because that's where the discussion was starting to go. And he was like, oh, I own my own business, like I'm making over, I think, 100,000 a year. And I'm like, okay, so you're middle class, right? He said, yeah. I'm like, okay, how did you get there? And he was like, oh, through hard work and dedication. I'm like, that's so fucking cliche. Like, no, you had to do something more than hard work and dedication. And it's like, dude, no, don't fucking pull that shit with me. So it's like, you didn't work hard. You worked smart. So maybe you probably networked yourself with people. Maybe you took a certain path that got you to that place. You didn't just work hard. I mean, sure, you were dedicated, but you didn't just work hard. Like you had to do something more than work hard. And then like with Tim Pool in his video, that's basically what he was like, yeah, why don't you just do hard work, back breaking labor, like help the free market? And it's like, no, what if she actually wants to do this? Because there are people out there who do these type of jobs, or even do jobs that are middle class, and they're not happy in it. Why? Because people like you, they tell like people who actually want to do something that they enjoy to, oh, well, that's not going to work. Oh, why don't you just do this because that actually benefits society? Blah 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 blah. It's like it's
that's
degrading.
not a real job. You need to pull yourself out by your bootstraps. Get a real job.
Like that that just really pisses me off because like even my mom did it to me once when I wanted to like be a sports journalist. It was like, oh, why don't you become a doctor? And it's like, I don't want to be a doctor. Like that's like, because I'm gonna be honest. Like if I were a doctor, I probably wouldn't be that good. Like I probably might give you the wrong medicine. I don't know. I just don't want to get sued for malpractice. Like
yeah. Oh, America! Everyone's suing everyone. But on to the sorry, you said a lot, and then I kept thinking of like, oh, here's a thought I had. Then I forgot about it.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Like it was really great talk. Oh, here it is again. I remember. I always love those people who are like, oh, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I earned everything myself. Who obviously had it all handed to them on a silver platter. Like these fucking frat boys whose parents are paying for their college. Like,
oh my god,
I worked by my bootstraps. I did it all myself.
And it's like, no, you were born into that circumstance. It's like, you had it well off since the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so embarrassing. But anyway, about your point back onto investing more in education in order to help Black people. I definitely agree with that point. But isn't education in the United States funded through property tax in the local area?
I think so.
Because what this have resulted in is that in rich areas, public schooling is pretty good quality.
Yeah.
But in poorer areas where the property is worth much less and people have much less money, the schools are in
they get underfunded. And then eventually they get closed down, which is kind of sad to see. I mean, it's really, because it's like they shouldn't get closed down because it's not the kids' fault. It's just it's the fucking system. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's set up really badly. So I think they really need to overhaul that method of funding. Just fund it directly from the federal government.
Right.
Just take it out of those taxes.
Oh wait, and then I hate the argument. It's like, oh yeah, well, we don't have that money. It's like, oh, but you have billions upon billions of dollars to like fund the fucking military. Come on.
Yeah, like America spends, what is it, like as much as its military as the next 8 countries combined.
Yeah, it's
maybe even a bit more. It's America spends an insane amount of money on its military. It's something like $750 billion a year now.
And then it's the same thing with healthcare. It's like I think we spend what, like 32 billion, and then we say, oh yeah, our system is the best. Like, look at Canada. Like, you got to wait 2 weeks for a doctor. Here, you can get it right away. And it's like, yeah, like, okay, you can get the doctor right away, but is it going to be quality care? And in terms of statistics, it's not quality care. Like, there are countries with like universal healthcare systems or single payer that are beating us. And it's just mind boggling. It's like we spend the most money on healthcare, yet we have a poor system. It's like, what's wrong there?
Yeah, it is really weird. America spends the most money on its healthcare system, but it gets the worst quality services. And I think it's because America's healthcare system is pretty much structured in that doesn't the drug companies get to set the prices, and then in order to
Yeah.
yeah, the insurance providers, they set the prices, and then in order to provide for people who are covered by Obamacare, the government buys from those companies and then gives it to the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Pretty
that's
sure that's
a
how.
really, really inefficient way of doing it, because then the companies have they have every incentive to charge as much as possible,
Right.
and then the government will have to spend that money on really, really overpriced drugs and care in order to provide it to people.
Right. Like I think one time when we went to the pharmacy, me and my mom, she was gonna get, I think, my asthma medication. And they almost like didn't give it to us because they were like, oh well, it's on a different insurance. Like it actually costs more on this type of insurance and you don't have that insurance. And they almost didn't give it to us. And eventually they did because they found like an error. But that was scary because it's like, okay, I need that medicine to live,
Mm-hmm.
like to regulate my asthma so I don't have a asthma attack or
Yeah,
something like that. And it's just like, okay, if I don't get that, then that's terrible.
yeah, yeah. And the insurance companies, they seem to be mainly getting away with having these absurd like exceptions, and
Mm-hmm.
basically their whole profit model is we will charge the most for providing the least care possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll create as complicated as terms and agreements as possible so we can skip on providing healthcare insurance.
Yeah, it's really fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, I really like, I feel kind of bad to say it, but I really don't want to live in America. I don't
I
live,
mean, I get what you're saying.
um, but like, I look at that system and like all my life, I've gotten, public health care that's good quality. Like, sure, the wait times suck, but at the end of the day, the healthcare is still there waiting for you. You will still get the
Right.
treatment that you need. But in America, like, if you don't have insurance,
Yeah, you get screwed over.
sure, keep it. Sorry, I'm just going through the comments again.
Oh, okay. Wait, hold on. I'll be right back.
All right, great. Okay. I mean, not great that he's gone, but great that he told me. I don't know. I'm awkward. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. Oh, here we go. Farms need to be syndicalized like the Macno-Titschina or the EZLN does it, sorry. Otherwise, there's going to be tensions between the countryside and town. It's an interesting perspective. I admit I should probably do more research on the Macno period of control, the Ukraine Free State or something, whatever it was called. I've heard Macno brought up quite often, but I haven't actually done much research on how the economy was organized under that brief period of time when it was under his control. Well, I suppose it wouldn't be under his control, under the workers' control, because he was an anarchist. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh yes, the Revolutionary Insurrectionary Army of Ukraine. Quite the mouthful there. Nancy Pelosi still asks the question, how can we pay for Medicare for all? Yeah, the funny thing is it probably would actually save money, because what ends up happening is that you don't cover everyone. Okay, so they have an ailment, And instead of treating that ailment when it's just a little minor one, and you could save a lot of money by doing so, because they don't have any insurance, it gets worse. And because the ailment gets worse, they lose their job. So now they're covered finally by the US safety net. But then their condition has progressed to a state where treating it becomes much, much more expensive. And as a result, the government ends up paying more for worse quality care. Anyway, sorry, I was just answering.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
So did you hear that the president of Sudan and the president of Algeria have resigned this week?
Oh, no, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. The president of Sudan, I think his name was al-Bashir, was one of the most notorious dictators basically on earth.
Yeah, wasn't he behind the genocide that happened there, right?
Yeah, he was, you know, a genocidal dictator, but somehow he managed to cling on to power for a bit. South Sudan actually separated from the country during his tenure. And now the military is running the show, although I think al-Bashir was a military dictator. And they want to stay in control for 3 years before they say they'll hold elections. Of course, the actual people living in Sudan, the protesters, they don't want this. They want a civilian transition government because they don't just want another military dictatorship after they finally got rid of it. And pretty amazingly, they got the general who is in charge of the military government to resign after only 2 days of being in charge.
Wow.
Although, unfortunately, he just got replaced by another guy. So what seems like will happen is that the military—
Wait, another dictator? Or
leaders until they find either the people get tired of booting them out, or they finally get the civilian government they want. It just goes to show that if, you know, the people put pressure on the state and actually go out into the actually go out into the streets and make themselves a physical threat to the government, then they can usually get what they want pretty effectively.
Yeah, yeah. Like, geez, it was a quote about revolution or like protesting. I forgot. It was on the tip of my tongue. I just can't remember it right now. But it was a really good quote. It was like revolution can always get things done when done correctly. It was that was like the basic gist of the quote. But
yeah, revolution, I'm of two minds on it. On one hand, I see a ton of problems in society, and it would be really tempting just to fix them like that. However, there is also the problem with sometimes when a system is replaced in a revolution, the new system that comes in afterwards is not, because there has been no kind of gradual base for this new society to be created, it ends up being either worse or kind of a rerun of the old one.
Yeah.
You kind of saw that in the French Revolution. When,
yeah, I was just gonna say that.
where the people gained a ton of rights at first, and it kind of went from constitutional monarchy to republic. But then eventually Napoleon just took over again, and he ran a dictatorship basically that was just as bad, if not even worse, than the one the King of France had led like 10 years ago. So, yeah, revolution, I don't know. I think revolution is good, but there needs to be a base behind it as well. And there needs to be continual pressure on the new revolutionary government. Otherwise, it will just relapse into the bad old habits of the one that was overthrown. So, anyway, I think that about does it for this stream, unless you have any other things that you wanted to bring up, because it's been a really wonderful chat.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's been nice. I enjoyed it.
I don't know. You just seem like a very well-informed person, very intelligent, and very woke. And I've just really enjoyed getting the chance to have a chat. So everyone, you should go subscribe to Oreo TV. I will link his channel in the description and his Twitter page as well. And while you're at it, perhaps you will consider subscribing to me if you are a first-time viewer. Leave a like if you feel like it, and comment also if you feel like it. Anyway, everyone, it's been fun, but ta-ta for now.